Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Bailey here, and welcome to my picks for the top 10, that's right, top 10 films out of the 19 that I saw this year that I thought were pretty amazing, and which ones I definitely recommend you check out. And before I get into my list, I just want to say we might all have different opinions, but that's okay. We're just here. It's just our opinion. If you think there should be something else on this list, then just let me know in the comments, and I'll think about rechecking it out. But anyways, let's get into it. Number 10. So for number 10, I would have to go with Wreck-It Ralph 2. And I'm just going to Wreck-It Ralph 2 right now because the title is just so long. But I honestly thought this was a pretty interesting movie. I mean, especially with like the Disney princess cameos and like Star Wars characters, all those famous Disney characters we know and love had little cameos in the film. And I gotta say, the story of it was okay. I mean, it kind of continued on with the series. The only thing I thought was different was the not so much appearances of Calhoun and Fix It Felix, but I still think it was a pretty interesting movie. And like I said, the main thing that got me about this movie was the cameos. So number 10, I would have to go with Wreck-It Ralph 2. Number 9. So for number 9, honestly, I didn't know if this was going to make it on the list, but I gotta say, for number 9, I have to go with Maze Runner 3: The Death Cure. I gotta say, this was a interesting way to end the series, and there's definitely some similarities in this movie like it is in the book, and there's definitely some like similarities between each of the movie and the book. And I gotta say, the ending definitely almost made me cry a little bit, but I gotta say, this movie definitely felt like it was a good sequel compared to the last one it had. But so I gotta say, this movie is very interesting to watch, and I recommend you check it out. So for number 9, I would have to go with Maze Runner: The Death Cure. Number 8. So for number 8, even though this was a little higher up on the list on my previous video that I did with Matt Davis, I would have to go with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, even though this is one of my favorite movies for the beginning of the year, I gotta say, Ant-Man and the Wasp was a pretty good movie. However, a lot of the comedic jokes in there weren't nearly as funny as some of the other movies that had comedic jokes, but I still could think it was a pretty decent movie. I mean, especially because it definitely tied in with what happened in the events of another Marvel film that was released this year, which I will probably have on this list. But yeah, I love the fact how Stan Lee's cameo was always good in this movie. Oh, speaking of Stan Lee, rest in peace, Stan Lee, because he died back in November, I believe, and I gotta say, he will be missed. And as far as I'm aware, the last known cameo that he should show up in is for Avengers Endgame, so we'll say goodbye to him in that movie. But yeah, for number 8, I would have to go with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Number 7. So for number 7, like I said, this was going to show up on this, but for number 7, I would have to go with Avengers Infinity War. Yeah, honestly, you knew this was going to make it on the list somewhere. Avengers Infinity War was such a great movie. It was the culmination of 10 years of Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I loved Stan Lee's cameo in that one too. But yeah, honestly, I can't wait to see how Endgame turns out, since that's the sequel to Infinity War. But yeah, I gotta say, all the characters in this movie were awesome. And for number 7, I have to go with Avengers Infinity War. Number 6. So for number 6, I would have to go with Ready Player One. Now, even though it took me until it came out on DVD to see this movie, I gotta say, I honestly thought it was a pretty good movie. I mean, the effects and the visuals in this movie was so awesome. I mean, there was one little scene in there that did seem a little inappropriate, but I gotta say, I thought this movie was a solid movie, and I can't wait to see if they might make a sequel to that. But for number 6, I would have to go with Ready Player One. And now we're getting into the top 5. So for number 5, I would have to go with Incredibles 2. I mean, the fact that it took a decade and a half for them to release this sequel, it was worth the wait. And that's why it made it into the top 5. And I gotta say, the villain of this film was pretty interesting. I mean, there's a little twist in the movie when it comes to the villain, but there was a lot of funny moments in this movie. It was just so hilarious, and I recommend checking this movie out if you haven't seen it already. So for number 5, I would have to go with Incredibles 2. Number 4. So for number 4, now I know some people may think this deserves to be a lot higher, but for number 4, for me personally, I have to go with Black Panther. Now Black Panther did make it on the list. It made it into the top 5, but I gotta say, I thought this movie was interesting. It was the only Marvel movie out of the 3 that came out this year that at least made it into the top 5, but I gotta say, I thought it was pretty interesting to see like a change in scenery with a Marvel character, and I am gonna be interested to see how he comes back in Avengers Endgame. But anyways, for number 4, I have to go with Black Panther. Number 3. So for number 3, I have to say I thought this movie was pretty interesting to watch, and now it has to be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is the first ever animated version of Spider-Man I got to see in the film, and I gotta say, all these other Spider-Mans that showed up in the film were pretty interesting to watch, and that's why it kind of made it into the top 3. And I gotta say, this is pretty amazing how they did it, and I am interested to see the sequel. But for number 3, I would have to go with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Number 2. So it was hard to choose between these, but I gotta say, number 2 would have to be Bumblebee. That's right, the prequel to the Transformers films. I honestly was hoping this movie would do well. I mean, after the disaster of all the other movies, and I gotta say, it definitely impressed. I went to see it with my friend and my cousins, and I gotta say, thumbs up to Travis Knight for giving us a really good Transformers movie, and I hope they do as well as he did in the next few years of movies for this series. And I recommend going to see this movie. But for number 2, I would have to go with Bumblebee. And finally, for my number 1 all-time favorite movie of this year, I would have to say would be Mary Poppins Returns. That's right, the movie just got released 2 days ago, and I gotta say, I love this movie. It was a direct sequel to the classic Disney film from 1964, which I wasn't even born around that time, but I saw the movie. I saw this one, and I gotta say, it truly stuck to its roots. I mean, there was a few dark moments that didn't feel like should be in the movie, but they made it work. And I gotta say, Mary Poppins Returns was truly a memorable movie, and I recommend you go see this film. As for now, my number 1 spot would have to be Mary Poppins Returns. So that's basically my rankings for the top 10 films I thought were good this year out of the 19 I saw, and I might do a list of movies that I didn't think were so good that I thought could do a little bit better. I'm not gonna say they were the worst ones, but I thought they could do a little bit better. So keep an eye out for that video, but as always, I will see all you dudes in the next video.